Hello, chess people. This is International Master David Pruess back with the third week highlights from the Professional Chess League, Professional Rapid Online Chess League. And we're going to kick it off right away with a couple positions from the match between the ChessBras and the St. Louis Archbishops, which was the most hype match going into this week. I think it was the one I was most excited to see. No offense to all the other teams that were on 2-0 and are now on 3-0, but this was a matchup between two teams on 2-0 who had thrashed their opposing teams in the first two rounds by many points. And here they were playing against each other. St. Louis having, once again for the third week in a row, Fabiano Caruana and Wesley So reporting for duty. Could anything stop them? On the other side, Ivan Saric with 8 out of 8 was the last player in the league with a perfect score, and Eric Hansen with 7.5 out of 8 was one of the other top performers in the league. So this week the ChessBras did not have Robin van Kampen, and so they came into the match without the 3 GM lineup that they had used in the previous matches, and so they had IM Thavindiran, or as we will call him, Hudinovic, on board 3 for them, and he had to pick up slack without the 2600s there. Would he be able to compete with St. Louis's 3 GM, 2 Super GM lineup? It quickly turned out that he could. Here he is playing white against Wesley So in round 1. He goes for opposite side castled position. They're both throwing their pieces at each other. And here, Hudinovic was up to the challenge. He plays knight e3, the only good move here against Wesley, who's getting ready to do something horrible to him on g2. If the pawn takes the knight, his queen can capture the knight on f4, simultaneously attacking the pieces on g4 and h4, and sort of defending everything on the side of the board, leaving white with a good position. Wesley tried knight h3 check, pawn takes h3, knight f3, which looks very scary. Hudinovic calmly moves his king into this discovered attack. Okay, the black queen can be taken with the knight if black does anything too fancy here, so black takes the knight, and still he calmly just takes back with his rook, allowing all these discovered checks. It turns out there's nothing here that that would destroy him. Yeah, it's a little bit complicated basically, but if knight h4 check, king g1, knight back to f3 check, white can just sack the rook on f3, followed by bishop takes a6 with a powerful attack, and if black plays the knight to somewhere like e5 instead of h4, then white has bishop g2, and winning on that diagonal g2 to b7, allowing queen a6 check kind of move. So Wesley doesn't have any crushing move here, plays bishop d7, rerouting the bishop to c6, which would be a very good square for the piece, and Hudinovic bails out with queen b3. It forces a queen trade because of the attack on f3, so very precise. The bishop comes to the long diagonal, but now he's ready for it, and he trades off into this endgame, which, if anything, clearly favors white. Now, how to convert that is much too difficult to go over in a highlight video, and was also too difficult for Hudinovic against Wesley, and the game eventually petered out to a draw, but surely he was the one who had the better chances here. Xian went on to beat Grandmaster Samuel John in a later game, a big upset win that helped propel the ChessBras. So he scored 2.5 out of 4 in the end. Really just a fantastic performance against an amazingly strong lineup. Nobody would have predicted 2.5 out of 4 for him. And yeah, let's check in on some of the matches between the top boards. Ivan Saric, would he be able to score 4-0 again? Here he's playing black against Wesley So. He's 2-0 so far in the match, and things are looking quite good for him in this isolated queen pawn position. He plays d4, kicks the bishop back. Black's got this nice space advantage, much better placed pieces. I think without a doubt, without any argument, black has a huge advantage after a move like rook a to c8 or d8 like you would expect. And here, Saric shocked everybody by just cavalierly leaving his rook on a8. Like, I don't care, what are you going to do? Take it? Then your light squares will be bad. Well, Wesley took it. I mean, this move's crazy to me. I think I think Saric has compensation afterwards. But, I mean, it's so good to develop the rook to d8 or c8. It's like he's only leaving it on a8 to taunt Wesley or something. I don't know. Clearly somebody who was, feeling very confident at this point when he plays this way. And, his position was fine, but, there may have come a time somewhere in the game where it was time to play bishop h3 or something and recover his exchange like he could do here. Bishop h3, and if white plays knight g2, then the move queen c6. I think just wins for black. So, yeah. I mean, there's various opportunities. He had compensation for a while, but eventually Wesley untangled his pieces and won the game. So, Saric just playing maybe a little too confidently, a little too cavalierly, like nothing bad can happen. I've got these great bishops, no concerns. But, yeah, ends up losing a game where, he had a fantastic position. 1 round later, Fabiano makes up for it for him. Not him for himself, but Fabiano for him. In this position, Fabiano thought for 3 minutes. Long think, wrong think, I guess, because he came up with bishop f5, which also shocked viewers. No one has seen Fabiano make a move like this in a long time. White can just win a piece here. You guys see how? You can pause and look if you want, but I'm going fast. White just takes on d6, removing the defender of the f5 bishop. If black recaptures on d6, white will capture this piece on f5 after, say, bishop d6, rook e8, queen f5. Queen e1 is not back rank mate because of bishop f1. So black trades on d3, but then white has to take on e7. And after trades on e7, white will recover the bishop on d3. Fabiano resigned, and the ChessBras won the match 9-7. I think Saric had a fine position. It's not like he was going to lose this game if not for the blunder. Who knows what the result could have been? It could have been anything, but certainly this decided the match. This blunder at this point in round 4. And with that, Saric remains on 11 out of 12, the best score in the league, tied with 2 other players. Their games didn't fit into this highlight reel because there's so much good stuff. So I will mention Hikaru Nakamura scoring 4 out of 4 at 4 a.m. in Gibraltar after playing in the tournament that day and staying up all night watching the Atlantic Division in between and streaming, leads Seattle to their second match win of the season with 4 out of 4. So he also has 11 out of 12 points, just like Saric. And the other player with 11 out of 12 points is Alexei Sarana, who gave up 1 draw against a top competition Eltaj Safarli, and other than that won 3 more games to keep the Kangaroos at the top of the Pacific Division, with also 3-0 match record for them. All right, continuing on into the Atlantic, here is a beautiful tactic from Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov, aka Super Bliss, or Blythes. I actually don't really know how the handle's pronounced. Here black plays rook to d8, and he sacked an exchange earlier. We don't have time to see that. It was brilliant as well. But here this rook d8 sets up just absolute devastation. There's nowhere good to go with the queen. No good move. Gadir Gusainov, who outrates him by about 150 points, goes to a7, and Shabalov unloads, just like in the good old days. Bishop takes c2 check, devastating. If the king runs away, of course, black can capture on d1 with some massive material advantage as well as continuing attacks. So white takes, and the follow-up is very important. b3 check, depriving the king of this flight square. Queen f5, king to b3 would not have been correct. b3 check. If king takes b3, he has queen b5 check, and then queen takes b2 checkmate. So the king can't come up. The pawn has to block the king in himself. Now the bishop and queen do the 2-bishop trick on these diagonals here. White can't block. He's forced back. Rook c8. White has to give up everything he's got. And Shabalov went on to win this game quite easily. Here he's got queen takes queen next since the king's in check. All right, onwards. Another promising looking Sicilian-like attack for black on the queen side here. This one actually out of a Philidor defense. But FM Aaron Jacobson, who scored 1.5 out of 2 against GMs in the first 2 rounds, really putting the Marshalls in fantastic position to win their match, actually suffered with 1.5 out of 2 against the Miami champions' bottom 2 boards. And here, after queen takes c5, white's up a rook and a pass pawn on e6 and all this, well, in exchange, and the pass pawn on e6 and a pawn on a3. But it's not enough. Katz has just enough time to break through with his attack. Knight takes a3 check. Beautiful move. If pawn takes, his queen comes to e2, and white simply can't defend against the checkmates on c2, b2, a2, and if rook h2, queen to d1. So, so if he plays king a1, then knight c2 check, king b1, rook a1 is also mate. So he took it with the queen, only other possibility. And Katz does not even deign to capture this queen. I mean, if he does, white still has 2 rooks and a passed e-pawn against the queen, so it's not at all clear, right? No, his follow-up is even more murderous than just winning a queen. Queen f5 check. If the king comes to c1, it's mate on c2, so the king comes here. Now will he take the queen? No, now he sacks the bishop too. Oh no. Queen can't take because it's pinned. King takes, queen comes in, king here, check, mate, boom. That's another sweet one, right? 6 moves in a row of graphicness. All right, here a little PSA, public service announcement about moving pawns in front of your own king with opposite side castled positions. Here, FIDE Master Briakan decides that he cannot countenance this knight on c5 any longer, tries to get rid of it with b6. White says, great, now you've got a pawn on b6 for me to attack, plays a5. Yeah, lesser of all the evils is probably b5, queen b5 check, but then white's up a pawn and the knight lives on c5 forever, so he tries to keep Grandmaster Surya Ganguly's queen out of a6 at least by blocking this diagonal, since otherwise white's plan is to trade pawns on b6, play knight c5, and then queen a6, something like that. Or even knight to b8, queen a6, something, right? So he tries to block the queen out of the a6 square. But Surya's knight just says, you know what, I still have c5, whatever. No risk here since the rook on c4 is basically trapped and the black king is basically trapped. Some checks follow, and I'm just showing you a few more moves because I like the following move from Surya. Rook e6 check. Right in the middle of these black pawns. If it were atomic chess, all 3 of those black pawns would disappear. Well, they disappear anyway, even as normal chess. If the queen blocks on e7 here, it's rook to c8 mate, so the king moves, check here. He picks this up, and with 4 pawns against the knight and the king in bad position, Surya went on to win that game. No trouble. Now, finally, we move to the east. Here, Johann Solomon notices that black is really committed to this attack against his pawn on a3. Grandmaster Awanui is a little bit out of position here. Solomon decides to strike e4, push through the center. e4, d5, boom, boom, boom. Why is this so good? Well, because when black takes, he's not taking back. He's actually playing queen d4. This is a nice attack on the knight on b6 with a secondary threat, which will be revealed when the knight saves itself. Knight to c6. Oh no, threatening the bishop and checkmate. But wait, can't the bishop sort of deal with the checkmate and escape the knight? Well, yes, but the knight goes to e7 anyway. Bishop can't take because of mate on g7. King moves and queen takes f6. This is where you can resign with a clear conscience as black. Black kept playing for a mysterious 30 further moves as white took all their pieces, but white's now up a piece and crushing, and black's still out of position. So beautiful knockout by Solomon. Very good alertness there to go for e4, d5, queen d4. Now this game here between Grandmaster Rafael and Grandmaster Noel is going to be the subject of my professional chess lesson of the week. So I'll just give you a tiny sneak preview without any explanations, really. Here Grandmaster Rafael sacks a piece on f6, and he does not recover it. He gets a couple checks, but they usually make fun of people who sack material just for checks, right? At this point, he's got just 1 pawn for the piece and sort of continuing pressure. I mean, the king's not well placed. Neither is the king the most exposed piece we've ever seen and then he's still developing as white, he's not ready to end this. Now he gets his queen trapped over on the queen side here, and somehow manages to win this game anyway for white. So check out the professional chess lesson to see how he managed this feat. All right, another cool and intense example from the Central Division. Dr. Burger has been performing very, very well so far this season for the also well-performing Berlin Bears. And here he's got his knight on d5 hanging to this pawn after queen e4. It seems to force a retreat of knight to e3 to avoid the queen trade and to avoid losing the piece on d5. Queen e4, bishop e4 also doesn't look promising. Burger just says, hey, have the knight if you want it. Well, Blitzstream wants it. He takes it, runs back with the queen, rook to e1. But what are you going to do on this e-file with your own queen on it? Okay, trade queens, huh? What is going on? White has just sacked a piece in order to trade queens and let black castle. But this position is complicated, and actually it's good for white. I clicked on a computer for a second to double check that for you guys because it's pretty darn complicated looking. He plays rook d5, even allowing bishop f7, attacking all his rooks, but he will come out ahead after rook takes d7 anyway. Black retreats the knight, and the strange violence continues here. Bishop f7, g5. So yeah, black comes here, and now saving this bishop from the pawn, and now g6. And if bishop takes, bishop check, king in the corner, rook to d5. And black just can't stop the devastation on h5. So the best black could do was sack a bishop on g5 just to block that 5th rank. Now white doesn't have a forced checkmate on the king side, but with a bunch of pawns and the bishop, he converted this endgame no problemo. One other moment I wanted to mention from the Central, this was a shocking game as well. This is Grandmaster Vasyl playing black here against WIM Medallia, the board 4 for the Ljubljana Turtles, who notched their first match win this week, including Grandmaster Rafael here was their second board. So in the first round, she seems to be on her way to a crushing victory against, the 500-point higher rated Vasyl g5. Look at this attack. Of course, she's planning to sack the rook, bring in the bishop. Here comes mate, g6, takes here. Yeah, it's just, white's just got to put his rook on g1 and it's mate, right? King h1, that'll do it. What? Maxime stops the white attack dead in its tracks with rook to g3. The only move to stop rook g1, and actually whichever pawn white takes with it blocks the g file for his other rook. And of course, she could have gotten a draw by checking back and forth by perpetual. To her credit, she realized that she's still up a pawn, and she tried to win this game. And eventually lost this rook endgame for an amazing escape for Vasyl. And in fact, right before allowing rook to g3, she was winning. For example, she can take on h5 check first, and then play king to g1. And then if rook g3 comes, hg3, fe4, king g2 brings the white rook to the h-file one move faster. And so it's even more instantly crushing and decisive. So Vasyl very lucky to get that point, but his team not that lucky. The Turtles still close it out. Real quick, looking over the standings in the league, the top team right now, Montreal Chessbrahs with 60.5 points and also 3-0, and also just beat St. Louis, which looked like one of the best teams in the league. Right behind them, the New York Marshalls, also 3-0 in the Atlantic. Over in the Pacific, there are also two teams with 3-0 in matches, and the Australia Kangaroos continue to lead the Chengdu Pandas by 1 point. Those two teams were exactly 1 point apart last week as well, so neck and neck, both teams looking super good. Over in the Eastern Division, the Tbilisi Gentlemen and the Armenia Eagles are both 3-0. In the Central Division, there's one 3-0 team. It is the Norway Gnomes, just ahead of the Baden-Baden Snowballs, who have 2 match wins and 1 match draw and are a couple points behind. So that's the Professional Chess League action for the week. Next week, it is Battle Royales. These are going to be 7 rounds instead of 4, 10-minute chess instead of 15-minute chess, and they will be 8-team round robins, 4 separate groups, where the teams will be mixed with some teams from other 4-4 with teams from other divisions, Central with Eastern mixed together, Pacific and Atlantic mixed together, and the board 1s will play only other board 1s, board 2s only other board 2s, so there will be some insane, 2,700 on 2,700 action on these first board round robins in all divisions. Should be thrilling, a new format to see tons of points on the line for the teams, at least double the points that are available compared to in a normal week's match. So high stakes, top lineups expected for many of the teams. And you can check that action out next week on Tuesday and on Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday and Friday. Tuesday and Friday. All right. That's all for now. Bye.